Welcome to the Housing Market Podcast. This week we have Coach Jared James joining us. And Jared is a wealth of information and always is there to share his perspective on this market. And he shares perspective about just what's happening with misinformation in the market, what's going on with the NAR settlement, and how we can be the knowledge broker and the expert given all of that. So let's go ahead and hop in. Jared, I am excited to have you on today. We've known each other for quite a while. You've supported KCM forever, and thank you for making time to join.
Yeah, man, I'm excited about this one. I think that my people will attest to this. I don't do a lot of podcasts. And by a lot of them, I mean none. we do our own, and then it's just a slew of messages every day. Hey, can you come do this podcast? Can you come do? And I don't do podcasts, but I appreciate what you guys do. I appreciate you. You and I have always gotten along really well. I think you're a genuine guy who knows what he's talking about and is good for the real estate market. And so when I saw this one, I said, let's do it. So I'm excited about it, man. Well,
thank you for that. And, I always love seeing the green screens that you do, and you'll take a KCM, article or a graphic and say, hey, this is something we need to be talking about. And it's essentially what we're trying to get out there every day is to say, hey, this is important. This is a fact about the market that's not otherwise getting in people's hands or minds, And
wait a second. Are you saying I can't watch the news and know exactly what's going on in the real estate market? Because this is blasphemy. I'm pretty sure you're going to get censored off of YouTube. This is going to be your second strike on Instagram. Like you can't say those kinds of things.
Right. The reality, I heard something very interesting. This is an election year, and this will be the first year that podcasters will have more influence on the election cycle than traditional media, right? I think, we can joke around about it and everybody kind of knows like, okay, you're going to get the perspective of whatever channel you turn on, but that world is changing, right? And the good news is we have the chance now to deliver that message, right?
Yeah, man.
It plays in our favor.
Isn't it funny though? Isn't it funny? Because what you just said is so true. And there's two things that popped into my head. I'll say in a second. But the first thing is that happens because people have gained such a mistrust for the media and all of that stuff. They realized, oh, news isn't news. Just because you call something that doesn't mean that's what it is, right? But it's interesting because the very people, and I know this from putting out a ton of videos and a ton of content, and I've gotten to the point where I can't see everything that comes through, but I'll watch for an hour and then I just kind of give up on it, but I'll see what's happening there. It's interesting how many people, why there's been a switch in media to where people now are watching and listening to podcasts and trusting podcasts. And yet when you see people get fearful, they will get fearful because of something the news said. And the very place they said that they don't trust, they will still go to for their source of fear. And I'm just like, wait a second, I thought we didn't trust these places. Why are you coming at me with that? Why are you afraid? Why are you? And so I think there's still a time frame right now where people are now going to have to start backing their beliefs. Meaning their behavior started to change, going, yeah, that's not where I go for news. That's not reality. But there's still that, it's like a bad relationship. Like you leave a relationship and you're like, you were strong enough to leave, but then everything they say still bothers you. Right. And you tell all of your friends, I don't care what he says. And yet it's all they talk about because they do still care what they say.
Right.
That's what's happening with the public right now. They're in the middle of a bad breakup where they finally had the guts to leave the jerk, but they're still listening to what the jerk's saying. And so although they're saying, I don't believe it, they're still like, it's still bringing fear into their lives. And so we're in that next phase now where people have taken action, and now they're going to start to cut off that voice completely. And so I'm excited to see people go into that next phase.
Yeah. And I think the reality in that story, and you bring up a phenomenal perspective, is that media still is the catalyst for an idea that I then go search in other areas to say, is this true or is this not true or what's going on here? And I feel like I can get maybe more of a original perspective from somebody who's an expert in the field versus somebody who's a generalist and maybe saying something that is just geared towards getting attention. And I think it again. I think it plays well if we're talking about our business. It plays well for us because we then have the chance to step into that and clarify things, right? And be the vocal proponent for what actually is happening.
Did you see, I put up a video yesterday, the New York Times, credible as it is, put out a thing about buying versus renting, and they did a study, because that's when you're really getting into the dirt.
Right,
they did
right. It's legitimate at that point. Right.
And they found buying versus renting that you save over $130,000 over 10 years if you rent. And they used this example, and they did a $500,000 house compared to a $2,000 a month rent. And I went, first off, what $500,000 house are you renting for $2,000?
Right,
You're starting off with a problem like that. That's not fair.
Right.
Obviously not taking into account any kind of write-offs, any kind of equity built. The last 10 years, the real estate market's gone up by over 100%. So at minimum on the purchase of that home, you made $500,000. Even if you didn't gain any equity, you didn't pay down any principal, you didn't, whatever. But this is the stuff the media does. They put that out there, and it's the tribal stuff. It's like, here we go,
right.
And now we've made the people happy who aren't buying and think that agents are scum of the earth. And look at this, now it's true, And it's a perfect example of why people have jumped off of those mediums and are starting to not only just listen to other voices, but I think you brought up a great point, which is listen to other voices in order to formulate their own opinion. Meaning,
right.
Hey, that's interesting. Let's go look that up. Let's research that. That's, if only everybody did that, but everybody doesn't have time to do that. But it was just another example, man. It's still happening to this day, even though they lose viewership, they lose traction, they lose credibility. They can't help themselves.
Well, listen, for the last 16 years at KCM, that's been the villain that we've fought, right? Is misinformation or, myth busting, or the analogy or the, research of it's cheaper to rent and go, okay, let's go and break that down. And so it's real. It's out there in the world. And I think, I think most people understand that today. Maybe 5 years ago, people were like, I don't know. But today people understand that, and they're looking for the information. And again, that's why I'll go back to what I say. I think it bodes well for everybody in the business that's a professional that can say, okay, listen to me. I am the expert. I will show you what's happening in this market.
David, you want a crazy opinion after that example? I've never said this, and you can clip this and make me look bad, but it's just the truth. The whole buy versus rent thing, we are missing the argument on. Yes, everything I just said is true, and yes, there's a financial argument for it. But the only reason that I'm able to come to logical explanations is because I'm open to the other side being right. When I come into an argument, or into an idea or into whatever, I'm not tribal. I'm really not. Like, I'm just like, okay, well, let's see what makes sense. And you had in the last 5 years, you had people like Grant Cardone, you had Gary Vaynerchuk, you had all these people saying buying a home doesn't make sense.
Right.
And so when you hear intelligent people say that, you go, let me think about this. Now, what a lot of our audience doesn't understand, and they're trying to make arguments from places that don't make sense. The financial arguments I just made make complete sense, and that article was not fair. It's also true that for a percentage of the public, people like Grant Cardone and Gary Vaynerchuk might not make sense for them. And all it means is that they can take that money and put it towards something else where they can make greater returns because they've got access to Uber when it launches, and they've got access to. But the argument for buying versus selling, the part that everybody misses, is the idea that for the normal public, which is the American dream group, for the normal public, when you look at net worth later on, when you look at retirement later on, when you look at what a home is at its core, is built-in savings. And you hate to make that argument, but you can only make that argument because the majority of the public, even if you ignore everything else, doesn't save. And the majority of the public lives in a way week to week to week that no matter what level of income they make, they're broke. So if I just made a little bit more money, well, yeah, you did. Well, now you're getting 2 Starbucks every time. And if I just made it and whatever. And so when you look at that, when you look at the general public, one of the strongest arguments you can make that is difficult to go against with stats, anything, even if you want to pull different whatever, it's just the idea that it's built-in savings for later on in life for people who, quite frankly, do not control their urges. They just don't. They don't save.
Right.
They don't live lifestyles that set them up for later on. And what that home does above and beyond everything else, above and beyond the emotional argument of what it's like to be home, above and beyond what it's like to mow your own lawn, above and beyond of how you take care of a property when it's yours and you're not, above and beyond the argument of a culture of owning versus a culture of renting, above and beyond an argument of financial and everything else, what you can't argue is we have a public, no matter what they make, they don't save. And they live paycheck to paycheck.
Well, I think the facts to support very plainly that home ownership is the number one way that people build wealth in this
100%.
country. That is a fact. We did a breakdown. The one thing that always kills that argument is the accumulation of equity, like you said. Even if somebody said it's cheaper by a couple $100, few $100 to go out and rent in the area that I live in than it is to buy. Well, that may be factually correct. I'm open to that, and I think there are areas in a lot of maybe major metropolitan cities where that is true, where when you add in the accumulation of equity, it then defeats that argument. Now, that doesn't mean that it's right for everybody to buy a home. That's not what we're saying.
Right.
But it doesn't mean that it should be thrown out.
Different seasons of life. Someone's in and out of somewhere quick. They're not going to be able to take advantage of capital gains exemptions and whatever. Absolutely. And so what I'm saying is, real estate people, if we're gonna level up in this industry and say that we're going to stop being known as the caricatures of these characters on reality shows and actually be the pros in the area, it means that we can't be like a federal judge and everybody knows which way we're going to go before every single case. We need to be open to the idea of what's best for you. Because when you start thinking about the long term of your business, and you start looking at yourself at eHarmony, and you stop looking at yourself as Tinder, and you start to think of yourself and you start to think of lifetime value of the client, you start to make decisions and process things in a way that is good for them long term, not what's good for your bills next month. And that's it, man. It's lifetime value. That's the way we have to look at our clientele. It's not this one decision. It's the decision over and over and over and over for the next 35 years.
Right. No, that's a great point. Let's talk about that topic. I mean, you're out there talking to agents on I think a daily, weekly basis. This idea of leveling up, like you just said.
Yeah.
There's plenty of information out there, and people listening to this podcast are very aware of the NAR settlement and where we stand with that. But how are you coaching agents to level up?
Well, let's look at what just happened first off. We don't have to agree with everything that just happened in order to benefit from it happening. Let's be clear on that. What just happened to our industry, and I'll put this in the clearest way that I know. This will give you an idea of how my head works here. We just tiger-proofed our industry. And let me explain to you what I mean. If you remember in the early 2000s when Tiger Woods was dominating the course, like he was dominating the tour, we've never seen someone win like this. You're not supposed to be able to do that in golf. And the tour got together and said, we don't think this is good. We don't think this. And so in an effort to tiger-proof the courses, they started lengthening the courses. They started expanding the sand traps. They started to try to make it harder so that he wouldn't win as much. And you know what happened? He won more. Because what they didn't plan for was that when you made it more difficult for everyone, you made it easier for one. Because he was winning because he was better. His skills were better. He was more precise. He had more of an imagination. He had more. So when you look at our industry right now and you look at all the changes that just happened, it's very much like Waze, like the navigation tool. Right. Most of you don't realize this, but when you pull up an address, it gives you 3 options. We don't look at it. We just take the first one and go. But they all go from point A to point B. It's just that option 2 and option 3 take a little longer and go through the traffic, right? So what they just did to our industry was they didn't change A to B. They just eliminated option 1. So now we're still going point A to point B. We just have to go through some traffic now. And what they did was they just tiger-proofed the course, and they made our industry more difficult. They added friction between the seller and the buyer. They added all of these things. But guess what ends up in the end? Those that are prepped, those that have a coach, those that are practicing, those that are skillful, those that are, guess what? They're going to win even more now. Right. Because all they did was make it more difficult for those bottom percentage who are hanging around so they could sell their grandparents' house on the side. And those that had the skills all along and that are actually preparing for today's market, and their skills today, they're going to love the fact that the course is longer. They're going to love the fact that you've got to be more precise. They're going to love the fact that pros are finally appreciated. And that's what just happened. Whether people recognize it or not, that's what just happened.
Yeah, no, I hear you. And I've always said, in this, that it benefits and works in favor of the educated agent, the professional educated agent. All of this works in favor. The agent that's stepping out, showing their value, stepping out, saying, hey, this is what's happening, just like we talked about in buy versus rent or something that's misleading in the media, no doubt. So what are you seeing right now the best agents do to counteract that?
So I think that the advantage right now is actually the interaction between the client and the agent. The fact that now you have to have that interaction, the fact that people are being tested. So we're not just pulling a car up, looking at the outside and going, oh, it looks good. We're releasing the valve to see if the oil's, we're actually checking under the hood now. And so when an agent is going to a presentation, let's just say with a seller, whereas before they could kind of gloss themselves up, go through the car wash, show up and be like, I'm a fancy, nice car. Everything's good right here. And they would just try to get along. They were, as they put in their Instagram profiles, matchmakers, where all they had to do was get along with people. That was what their job was. Now you have clients, whether they're educated or not, that are starting to question it a bit. They're starting to look around the car a little bit. They're starting to hit the tires, kick the tires a little bit. So now they're asking questions. And they're going, so I heard I don't have to pay out a commission to the buyer's agent. And now if you're not a seasoned agent or you don't know what you're doing, you're just sitting there like, well, I don't know. Where'd you hear that? And they don't know what to do. Because now it's not just fluff. It's not just makeup. Now it's like, do you actually know what's going on? Are you actually a pro? Is there an advantage to having you in my corner? But with the pros, the people who are trained and know what to do, know what to say, they understand, these things that we've pushed aside for years, sales skills. You answer a question with a better question, like these kinds of things. Those people now are able to shine. They're able to, we're going to have real conversation now. This is not just about, showing you how cool I am and how many Instagram followers I have. This is like the legit, what's going to happen in a negotiation on the largest asset you're ever going to own. And so in my mind, those people, again, who are coached or trained or skilled, they're in a position right now where they get a chance to show that off. They're not just singing in the shower anymore. They're on the stage. They're on the stage of American Idol, and it's not enough for their grandma to say they can sing now. Now it's like, can you sing? Can you sell? Can you be a pro in this market? And I love that because that's a separation. And so I think that's what's happening. I think that's a great thing, and I think it's an absolute opportunity when now the consumer is the one who's leading the way and saying, "Hey, what about? Hey, I heard this." Hey, the other agent told me this. Hey, and now it's like opportunity. Set me up here.
How do you, when you say set me up here and you talk about this, it's the flight to quality, right? It's the best agents in this market win. How are you coaching agents to be prepared in those interactions? Is it getting really good at scripting? What are you saying right now to the coaches that you coach and how they're coaching agents?
Sure. So first off, I believe in scripts. I don't believe in being scripted. I know that may sound weird, but we all believe in. Weird. Look, everyone believes in scripts. The moment you say to somebody, "Oh, beautiful weather, huh?" or "How's your job?" or that's a script that you learned, that you use when the conversation's going nowhere. It starts to get awkward. You talk about the weather. You ask them about their job. You ask them about, those are all scripts. So all of you that tell me you don't believe in scripts, then you might as well start wearing a muzzle because you do it all the time.
Well, the idea of scripting, in my opinion, is knowing what you're going to say before you say it.
Sure, or knowing the spirit of where you're trying to go and how to get there is kind of how I would say it, right? So for example, if someone said to me, I heard that I don't have to pay the buyer's agent anymore. Well, there's two ways I can go about that, okay? The first thing I would do is with curiosity, and I'd say, oh yeah, what did you hear? And now I'm going to put them on the spot. I'm going to put them on the spot. Do you believe what you're saying? This is also going to give me information into what I'm dealing with. How deep do I go here, And they're either going to be like, I'm not really sure. I just kind of saw something,
Right.
And now I'm like, all right, well, let's talk, whatever. Or I'm going to get someone who's been on CNN 24/7. And, now they heard that finally
they're the expert.
The real estate world is just, and we're going to get rid of these scumbag agents. Now I know who I'm dealing with. That's going to change how I deal with this situation. Right. Or I might say something like, that's so funny. Did you hear that now, or did you hear that 5 years ago? Because it was the same. You never had to. You never had to. And just because you don't have to do something doesn't mean that it's not in your benefit to do it. I didn't have to shower before coming over here. Didn't need someone to give me a rule to do it either. I just did it because it made sense. And I think everybody thanks us for that, right? And so I might use a little humor like that. Again, depends on the situation, right? Or I would say to them, hey, did you hear that now, or did you hear that 5 years ago? Because it was, it was true in both cases. Like it's always been true. You never had to do that. Here's the problem with that, okay? Yes, you were told by another agent they weren't going to offer it out. I can do that as well, but it's also my job as a professional to let you know what that means for you so that you can make an educated decision on what you think is best for you. When an agent's coming into the situation and buyers are looking at your property, a buyer is already paying for moving costs and closing costs and all these other things, and in many cases don't have the additional cash to pay their agent. Now, they're already technically paying their agent because they're paying that in the purchase price, but they don't have it as additional cash. And so the moment that you say we're not offering that out and we're not open to that, you eliminate a certain percentage of buyers who can no longer afford your property. Now we're into basic economics 101, supply and demand, right? And so when you eliminate a certain percentage of people who can buy your property, it means you decrease the demand. And when you decrease the demand, you now decrease the exposure. And when you decrease the exposure, we're now affecting those record prices, which were the whole reason that you wanted to sell to begin with right now. We're messing with all of that. So in a sense, you put yourself at a competitive disadvantage because you didn't want to offer that out. You don't have to, but this is the byproduct of that. And now listen, you may not love this system, but it was the system that you benefited from when you bought this property. It's the system you'll benefit from when you buy the next property. And so the answer to the question is, do you have to? You absolutely don't have to. We're going to do what you feel comfortable doing. But my job is to educate you on how that may turn out if you decide not to, and it's up to you to decide whether you want to go that route or not. I would tell them.
Yeah, that's well said. I think one of the things you said on the front end, one of the best things you can ever ask someone is that simple phrase, tell me what you've heard.
Yeah, what's that mean?
Yeah.
And by the way, say it with curiosity. Don't be a prick. Like, just be like, what? Be kind of confused. Like, you don't have to pay the buyer. Wait a second, what did you hear? Like, be curious and be like, what? Like, almost like, my God, why would you do that? Because that's a disadvantage to you. Hey, you technically don't have to pay me. You could just go FSBO and get a percentage less than what you're, you don't have to do anything. That's what's important for them to understand. Some of the things we do because they're in our best benefit to do them. And just because the New York Times ran out of things to write about and put up something for you to go, doesn't mean that that's in your best interest. That means that's in their best interest to get eyeballs.
Yeah, no, it's a great point. I wonder about this whole situation and how long it is a distraction for our business.
Yeah.
Do you have any perspective on that, on how long this will be a distraction?
Sure. The media spent less than 24 hours when Michael Jackson died.
Yeah.
Think about that. We live in such a bubble that it is such a big deal to us. But I honestly believe that as we continue on right now and we start to see more and more come out, I think that the market's actually going to normalize. I think that we're actually going to see more and more people right now who are going to get to a point where they read it, they heard it, it wasn't as big a deal in their life as it is in our life, and at the end of the day, it's not really going to matter, right? And so I don't really think it's going to last that long. I think that once we get to that point, first off, we're prepping for August 17th beforehand right now, so I don't think it's going to last that long. I really don't. I think once we get out there, we're the ones that control the market, we're the ones that educate consumers. We have way more power over what happens with those people than a media headline that, again, I said, they spent 24 hours on Michael Jackson, they spent less than 24 hours on Prince, they spent, whatever that is. I don't think that we're going to see a huge time frame on this right now. I think people are going to get back to doing business. I think open houses are going to become a big deal again. I don't think it's as big as everybody. And I'm not one of these people who's like, it's nothing or it's the end of the world. I've just been watching it. And through watching it, I'm just sitting here going, yeah, maybe this isn't going to be as big as we thought it was going to be. Not that much has changed. It really, now we're going to see some adjustments, touring agreements, but then the Zillow touring agreement doesn't work in Virginia because you got to have an offer of compensation in order for E&O to kick in. Well, then now they start offering it for 1 cent. Well, there's going to be pivots and changes. I don't think it's that different.
That's been the case forever.
Yeah, I honestly don't think it's that different.
Yeah. No, I hear that. I think you're right there. I think it's a bigger distraction for us in the business than it is for consumers.
We live in our bubbles.
Yeah.
It's a big deal to us, and it's fear. It's like, oh my God, everything's changing. Guys, things change. I've said this over and over again. We will not be eliminated because of change. We're eliminated because of our inability to pivot or adjust to change.
Right.
Change is not a problem. Change is okay. And you know, the mentality of a really strong professional, the mentality of a strong entrepreneur, when they have that feeling of fear of, oh my God, things are going to change, I might not make it, maybe I'll quit. You need to remind yourself that's how everyone else feels too. So this is when you get ahead.
Yeah.
That's how everyone else feels.
Great businesses are built in those times.
It's winning time. Like at the end of the day, it's winning time. Like, and I know that sounds, motivational and whatever, but it's the God's honest truth. It's just winning time right now. Like realtors aren't going anywhere, agents aren't going anywhere, but at the same time, the people who don't adjust, the people who don't pivot, the people who don't whatever, they're going to be gone. There's nothing wrong with that. But we're not going anywhere. It's just how people find us, how they work with us, what they do. All of that changes. That's not the end of the world. Don't be afraid. Just adjust. It's a good thing. The more you change, the more that you trim off more fat, the more that our industry is pruned. As long as you're one of the strong, we're fine.
Most real estate agents know what's happening. Good agents understand what's happening. But great agents, they can explain what's happening. At Keeping Current Matters, we help real estate agents become experts. With market insights and marketing tools, you'll not only stand out, you'll thrive in any market. Keeping Current Matters. Be the expert.
So, Jared, people come to you to get going, to get active in the market, to make a difference. What are you seeing right now work in generating listings? When I ask you that question, is there something that comes to mind? You're like, hey, here's what I'm coaching people on right now.
Yeah, man. It's funny because I'm prepping right now for the advance, right? So I've got all these messages going through my head, and it's like I put out a post.
And just for anybody listening, Jared James Advance, when is that?
September 19th and 20th, Orlando, Florida. We're doing Orlando this year. But I didn't say that as like to promote it. I know that's
I hear you, but I want people to know that.
I said it because it's the truth. It's what I'm thinking. I'm prepping for it right now. And so when you ask that question, it's so funny because I've had this whole focus lately about we're all focused about what's changing. And the downside of that is that we're not focusing enough on what's not changing. Like what do we need to go all in on? Like what are those things? And so I'm thinking about our audience at the advance, and I'm thinking about our students, and I'm thinking about what's changing, what's not changing. And I'm like, really the thing that needs to change is all of you need to start doing the things we've been telling you to do for years.
Right.
Because then all the change wouldn't matter. That's what needs to change. It's not that yes, there's strategy change. Yes, open houses are going to be an opportunity now. But when you look at what's creating listings, it hasn't changed. I put out a video last week where I literally talked about every single buyer you get. You have your phone and you make a video. This is one of the greatest ways to get listings. Every buyer you get is the cheese that catches the mice. It's what every seller wants, which is a buyer. So instead of just taking that buyer and running around, market them. So make a video, hold it up. Don't send me a message, what kind of mic, what kind of lighting, what kind of camera. Hold up your freaking phone. Look at it. Say, hey, everybody in the so-and-so market, I've got a buyer looking for a 3 to 4 bedroom, 1 to 2 bath, 1,500 to 2,000 square foot home in the so-and-so school district. If you or anyone you know is even considering selling in that area, can you please let me know right away? I may be able to sell their home without it ever hitting the market. Comment below, shoot me a DM. I can't wait to hear from you. Talk to you soon. You shoot that video. You put it out on Instagram, Facebook, YouTube. You put it out to your database. And then on Facebook, Instagram, and YouTube, you spend $20 to promote it to people who have never heard of you. Watch what happens with people DMing you. My mom's thinking of selling in that area. What price range are they looking in? Hey, my mom, whatever. Are they serious? Are they? Right. It doesn't matter whether that buyer buys the property or not. You're not promising they're going to buy it. You're promising you're going to bring it to their attention, right? But one of the greatest ways that you get listings right now is just by leveraging the buyers you're already working with, or leveraging the buyers of the people in your office if you don't have buyers. You can do those all day, every day, and do an attraction model that brings people to you because you're giving them value. You're not just saying, come to me for a home. You're saying, I got buyers ready, willing, and able. Are you considering? Like, let's talk. Okay, that's called creating opportunities. That worked now. It worked 5 years from now. It works 5 years from now. So the thing that has to change, you got to start doing the things we've been teaching for years and stop hoping for business.
It's such a good point. The reality is, everything changed relative to the NAR settlement, but nothing changed. Nothing changed in our need to be out in the market. Nothing changed in our need to engage people like what you're talking about. And it's fighting through all of that to go out and do great business.
That's it, man. While everybody's focused on all this fear and everything else, listings went up. I did a video again 2 weeks ago where I talked about how in the past week, there were more listings put on the market and more buyer contracts signed than in any week of all of 2023. And most agents weren't even aware of it because they were still so worried about this and this is changing and whatever. And technically there was just the best week in the last 12 months.
Right.
And so yes, do we need to be aware of what's going on? Absolutely. But at the detriment of our actual business, someone said to me the other day, what do we do about this? The greatest solution on planet Earth is get a listing. The greatest solution on planet Earth is to actually focus on your business. You made a point in the beginning that was really interesting. I thought of it in my head. I'm going to sound stupid for a second, but hear me out. You said it's an election year. Yeah. Yeah, I didn't even realize that. I'm not even going to lie. I've seen all the nonsense and all the Trump this and Biden that and all of this stuff. It's this year, like November. Mm-hmm. Okay, so that's going to show you how insulated I am in the sense that I am focused on my stuff. I am focused on my business. I'm focused on our students. I'm focused on our messaging. I'm so focused on the stuff, my actual life, that I'm not that concerned. It's the old line, if who the president is has anything to do with your business, you might as well get in a coffin and wait. Yeah. Because it's just, great, that happened. Oh, that sucks. Oh, my opinion says I wish it were that person. Oh, man, I'm so focused on my own stuff. And so when we say, what's the greatest solution? How do we overcome this? How do we, sometimes it's to do your business better than you ever have. Yeah. That's how you win.
I think that coaching is the best advice somebody can get right now. Because oftentimes we're looking for, what if I did this? What if I did that? No, it's to do the things that work in our business.
Look, you make adjustments, man. Like you make adjustments. Look, like again, I hate to keep referencing this, but I put a video out yesterday. The opportunity right now is going to be open houses, okay? Because they are going to become the last place where that friction between you and the buyer of that signed agreement is no longer required. Which means not only is it easier for you to set up that education center at the open house and meet them and build rapport without having to get them to sign something, it also means that all those buyers who are tired of every agent they run into trying to get them to sign something, which is about to be what happens, their outlet is going to be open houses, which means that your open houses are going to have more traffic than ever, okay? And so do we recognize opportunities? Do we prepare for those opportunities? Do we make slight adjustments? Do we pivot? I'm not saying we don't do that. Like, I want to make sure everybody understands that's not what I'm saying when I'm like, get about your business. I'm just saying that there is a percentage of that that's for adjustment and pivot, and they're small pivots, like a golf club, like just a little turn, does a little bit of a different, there's small pivots that happen while not taking your eye off the prize. While not taking your eye off of, the patterns and the rituals and the things that get you to where you are today, good or bad. I'm known for saying consistency is undefeated. Right. And the most common thing I'll hear from people is they'll go, oh, he's right, I've got to be more consistent. And it's like, no, you're consistent. You consistently wake up late. You consistently skip the gym. You consistently don't make you're consistent, Consistency always wins. So we can make adjustments while still remaining consistent.
Yeah. No, it's a great point. If somebody wants that consistency in their business, how do they connect with you?
I'm online. Just look up the Galleria of Jewelry, and just not the Subway guy. Please don't do that one. But no, we're jaredjamestoday.com, jaredjamestoday.com. All of my social stuff is at connectwithjared.com. I do a ton of stuff on social, a ton of videos, a ton of stuff just to educate. Yes, we have a large coaching and training program, but I put out a ton of free stuff on our channels just to try to keep people informed, keep them updated, whet their appetite, to the stuff that they really should know in today's market if we're going to be pros.
No, I appreciate that. And I think, listen, my advice to anybody listening is to connect with Jared. Go to connectwithjared.com and Jared James Today. And you're better off having people in your world that are out there looking at our business, giving you perspective. The job of any advisor or consultant is to bring ideas to you, if you're an agent, that you wouldn't otherwise have on your own. I think that's what you do very, very well.
Or to reiterate it so much that you finally do what it is that you knew you should have done.
Yeah.
You look at all these fitness trainers on Instagram, and how many different ways can you tell me to do a push-up and skip the brownie? You know what I mean? Right. This one looks better, so now I listen to them. This one, at the end of the day, look, we'd all love to strap a thing around our waist that, moves while we sleep, and we wake up with six-pack abs. And if you act right now, it's just 2 payments of $19.99. But at the end of the day, what works is what works, and it's what always works. When you look at that verbiage that I said before on that video, that verbiage is an example of, winning in real estate is saying the right thing at the right time to the right people and saying it enough times. And so whether you're doing that through videos, whether you're doing that through prospecting in person on the phone, however you're doing it, it's about consistency, not about feeling like it, not like, oh, I'm motivated to do it right now. It's about identifying that's what you are. A lumberjack wakes up some days and doesn't like trees, but they don't get to not cut down trees because they're a lumberjack. We're in real estate, which means we're about people, we're about conversations, we're about connections, which means however you wake up in the morning, however you feel, has nothing to do with anything. When you get up, you're about people. How do I connect with more people? How do I have more conversations with people? It's all that matters, because that's what this job is.
No, I think it's a beautiful point. Here, I want you to wrap with this. How do you personally, when you don't feel like that, how do you break through that?
Don't feel like what? Like what thing are we talking about?
When you don't feel like, hey, everybody has those days where they wake up. You said the lumberjack wakes up and doesn't like trees. How do you break through that? Routine.
I have divorced myself from feelings. Like I can't stress that to you enough. I literally, you might as well have brought me down to an attorney, signed the paperwork, and given away half my money to feelings, because I have divorced myself from feelings. What we want, who we say we are, whatever. I'm an adult. I figure out what I want. I figure out what it takes to get in between, and then I commit to those things. I don't commit to the feelings that come with it. I don't commit to the level of motivation I'm going to have every day. I commit to those patterns. I commit to those routines. No different than if you told your kids you were going to make bread and you went and got all the ingredients for bread. You can't then get to the oven and go, I'm just not in a flour mood right now. I'm just not, right. I just don't feel like flour. Flour's just not my thing. Well, then you're not getting bread. It's that simple. And our lives are that simple. I want to be a top producer. I want to be in shape. I want to be whatever. Here's the ingredients. I know it's 2024 and we all feel everything and we all get to pick what we do and what we don't. We all get to decide. There's a real world out there that exists after the age of 22. And when you get into that real world, you don't decide the ingredients for a lasagna. The lasagna is what it's always been and will always be. And if you skip those ingredients, you're gonna get spaghetti, not lasagna. That's how it works. And so when it comes to business, There are things that get us there. I'm an adult. I commit to it. I say, what's it going to take? I commit to it. I divorce myself from feelings. And then I'm just everyday routine. Like if you saw my routine every day I'm home, it is down to what I eat. I am a freak of routine for that very reason.
That's awesome. I mean, I think that dose of reality and routine and motivation and a little kick in the butt, like that's a huge gift that you have.
Man, when motivation kicks in, I do more, but I don't wait for motivation. Motivation, you don't know when it's going to show up, when it's not. It's like happiness. It's like sometimes it's there, sometimes it's not. You know, it's like it's like the feelings you have for your kids. Sometimes you love them, sometimes you don't. They're still the same thing. Like you know, it's just you don't control those things. But at the end of the day, this is my routine. This is what I do. That's
awesome.
Yeah.
Jared, I appreciate you sharing that and sharing it with everybody listening to How's the Market. Grateful for it. We got to do it again. So thank you for all that.
Awesome, man. Love being here. And hopefully we're going to have you guys at the Advance this year. I'd love to have you there.
We'll do it. Absolutely.
Awesome.
All right.
Thanks, guys.
That was an awesome conversation with Jared. I enjoy the time that I get to spend with him, and he's got the perspective of motivation, and he's certainly got the perspective of consistency and routine, like you heard him say. And it's always a pleasure to get a chance to talk with him. As always, keeping current matters, the How's the Market podcast exists to help you sort of navigate everything happening in real estate. And one of the ways that we can do that is by hearing what's important to you. What are the questions you have? What are the things that you want to hear us address? And so in the show notes, we're going to leave a link where you can add those questions in. There are things you want to see us cover in the How's the Market podcast so that we can deliver that to you. So, as always, we believe at Keeping Current Matters that every family should feel confident when buying and selling a home, and that's the reason we exist and the motivation behind all the things we do here. So we'll see you back on next week.